Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining in for the CEM dialogue organized by South Asia Regional Network. This is in fact the first one of the year. Hope you all had a good beginning to your year by now. So today we are having with us Dr. Purabhi Saikia, who is working as an associate professor in the Department of Botany, Institute of Science, Banaras Hindu University, India. She is basically a plant ecologist, working especially on conservation ecology, plant productivity estimation, invasions, and ecological niche modeling in Indian forests. She is a recipient of the prestigious Rashtriya Vigyan Puraskar, Vigyan Yuva Shanti Swarupa Bhatnagar 2024 Environmental Science Award, which is given by the Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India, and several other prestigious awards of national repute. She has published more than 67 journal articles with high impact factors and is an editor for more than 3 books and also co-authored several books and has contributed to several policy documents even published by IUCN. She has about 56 chapters, book chapters to her credit, and today she will be talking about the Indian forest and the forest degradation prevention through forest landscape restoration. I welcome Purabi to this dialogue. You can start the presentation now.
Thank you, Dr. Dipu, for this opportunity. So let me share my slides. Hope it is visible to all of you.
Yes.
So today I'm going to talk on Indian forest and forest degradation prevention through forest landscape restoration. So without further delay, I'm going to the background of the talk. So as you know, forests are dynamic ecosystem with different roles, functions, and benefits that support the all three pillars of sustainability, that is about social, economic, and environmental. So forests are the major source of terrestrial biodiversity because it hosts around 80% of the total terrestrial biodiversity, and it is the second largest land used in India after agriculture. And as you know, majority of the Indian population in a developing nation like India, although we call India's economy is agriculture based, but almost similar percentage of people are dependent over forest for their livelihood in various forms like fuel wood, wild edibles, for harvesting of non-timber forest products, medicinal herbs, etc. So in India, more than 40% of the forests are degraded and understocked, and 70% of the total forest have lost their natural regeneration potential. So if we see the present scenario of ecosystem degradation, then over 60% of the ecosystem services and biodiversity are degrading, compromising sustainability, well-being, health, and livelihood security. And currently, around 20% of the planet's vegetated surface shows declining productivity trend with fertility losses linked to erosion, depletion, and pollution worldwide. If we see out of the total global ecosystem, 1/3 has already been transformed by human activities such as agriculture and urbanization, while another 1/3 has been degraded to some extent. And degradation, along with climate change, could reduce the crop yield by 10% globally and by up to 50% in certain regions by 2050. So if we see the major causes of forest degradation, then we can divide it into two major categories like man-made causes and natural causes. If we talk about the man-made causes, then deforestation take the lead, while in case of natural causes, forest fire is considered in India as a major cause of forest loss. And if whether it is loss due to man-made causes or through natural causes, it ultimately lead to loss of terrestrial biodiversity, forest cover loss, loss of grassland, along with air, water, and land pollution, ultimately lead to desertification and land degradation. So, as we all know, India is considered as one of the tropical country, and the major biodiversity, if we will go from tropical to subtropical, temperate to alpine, then majority of the biodiversity we used to found in tropical regions. So the another point, having highest biodiversity in the tropical region, highest human population are also used to reside there in the tropical countries. And because of the higher human demands for livelihood security, tropical countries are losing 12.5 billion hectare of forest annually, and it ultimately leads to terrestrial biodiversity loss. So here in the plates, we can see various form of forest dependency by the local people of India. So here, based on the FAO report 2020, in the last 3 decades, from 1990 to 2020, the rate of global deforestation is almost 1.5 to 2 times higher as compared to the rate of forest expansion. So if you see during the decade 1990 to 2000, while we have forest expansion with deep green color, that is 8%, we have deforestation that is almost 2 times, that is of 16%. While in the next decade from 2000 to 2010, although our forest expansion is increased by 2% and the degradation or deforestation has also decreased by 1%. But if we see the next decade from 2010 to 2020, we have 12% forest expansion while we have 22% deforestation. So this is the rate at which like deforestation and forest expansion is going on. Similarly, if we see that mean species abundance in percentage, and that is projection based on baseline scenario of 2010 to 2050, so we can see like in areas like Japan and Korea, we are going to get like 35% decline in mean species abundance by 2050, while the lowest, that is of 7% decline in North America. If we see the South Asian scenario, we are going to lose like 11% of mean species abundance by 2050. So based on the Global Forest Watch, if we see the primary forest loss in India, so India lost 414 million hectare of humid primary forest, that is decreased by 4.1% in last 2 decades from 2002 to 2023, and it is almost equivalent to 18% of its total tree cover loss in our country. And here in the bar diagram, we can see like from 2002 to 2023, and if we will consider the forest cover of 2001 as 100%, then by 2023 our primary forest extent will remain only 95.9%, and primary forest loss will be 21.7 million hectare. So based on FSI report, we have tried to see like from 1990 to 2020, like forest cover change. If we see in Indian scenario, although the total forest cover of our country has been increased, but the quality forests are diminishing day by day due to overexploitation of forest resources because of the higher dependence of the people over the forest for livelihood. So if we see the increase in forest cover, then we can find like the percentage increase in Delhi having very less greenery, then followed by Kerala, although Kerala and West Bengal have a handsome amount of greenery, then Chandigarh and Haryana. But the point of concern is about the four northeastern states, that is basically considered forest rich region of our country, as well as the two central Indian states, that is Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. They have recorded a huge loss in forest cover, like a significant proportion of forest cover of MP and Chhattisgarh, that is 18.69% of total forest cover, as well as in state of the Arunachal Pradesh, that is around 9.36% has been reduced. So in addition to that one, 6 million hectares of forest are logged each year. As we know, our state forest department is also used to do selective logging from time to time. And if we see the incentives earned by the forest departments from logging activities, that are very less as compared to the forest destruction caused by these logging activities. So simultaneously, forest fire, it's burned around 4.7 million hectares of forest. And if we see in Indian forest, around 55% of Indian forests are prone to forest fire. So again, based on Global Forest Watch, if we see the tree cover loss in India due to forest fire, then we can see like from 2001 to 2023, India lost 38.1 million hectares of tree cover due to fire. And as compared to all other drivers of forest loss, that is only 2.29 million hectares in these 2 decades. So most tree cover loss was in the year 2008 with 3 million hectares, that is around 3.5% of all tree cover loss for the year 2008. So if we see in India, the top 5 states which are responsible for 60% of all tree cover loss between 2001 to 2023, out of these 5 states, all the 5 states are that Northeast Indian states, and out of these 5 states, Assam hold the topmost position with around 324 million hectares of forest cover loss, compared to an average of 66.6 million hectare. So in one of our project that was going on in central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh, we have tried to identify the prevalence of fire impacted zone there in different forest types, and we found like deciduous needle-leaf forest, deciduous broadleaf forest, mixed forest, shrubland, plantation, and grassland. All the different vegetation types are impacted by fire, while deciduous broadleaf forests are the most highly prone to forest fire, followed by deciduous needle-leaf forest. So, based on the fire incidences from the year 2000 to 2020, we have identified different states, different districts of the central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh, and we found like the district of East Nimar, Betul, and Ransen having the fire incidences greater than 8,000 incidents. And if we consider like Dindor, then Singrauli, all those Satarpur, all those districts are mostly unaffected by forest fire. And simultaneously, we have tried to identify based on the major fire incidences in different vegetation types in central India, and we found like majority of the fire incidences occur in deciduous broadleaf forest, followed by deciduous middle-leaf forest, then in grassland, plantation, mixed forest, and lastly about shrublands. So, in addition to forest fire, we can see like over half of the 14 biomes that the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment has assessed have experienced a 20, minimum of 20 to maximum of 50% of conversion to human use. And in the last 50 years, the rates of conversion have been the highest in both tropical and subtropical dry forest. So as we know, when the disturbances used to be enhanced in any forest area, then ultimately it become a very prone for the species invasion. So here I am trying to show the rate of invasion in different forest patches of Jharkhand. This is again part of one of our own study, like Mesosphaerum suavulens. It's become one of the dominant invasive in the dry deciduous forest of eastern and central Indian region. In addition to that, in the lowermost plate, you can see the patches of mixed invasive. Here you can get like mimosa, you will get Hyptis, Cromolina, Ageratum, and Lantana all together in like mixed composition. So in our study, we have tried to see the distribution of selected invasive plant species like Ageratum conizoides, Lantana camara, Parthenium hysterophorus, Cromolina odorata, and Mesosphaerum suavalens in all the Indian states, and we found like Parthenium hysterophorus and Lantana camara are the most widely distributed invasive, except the ice caps of the Ladakh and Kashmir region and top of the Arunachal, as well as the drier regions of Rajasthan and Gujarat. All the different states are invaded by both the Parthenium as well as Lantana. In addition to that one, the other dominant invasives like Ageratum conizoides, Cromolina odorata, and Mesosphaerum suavulens, they are like localized to certain regions from northeastern to western Ghat regions. So these are some of the photographs we have taken during our study. And then we have tried to see the status of IPS in different Indian states and union territories based on the FSI report, that is about FSI report 2019 as well as 21. And we are trying to see the percentage change from 19 to 21 in last 2 years. So if we see in the plate of 19, like majority of the areas are having higher area invaded by invasives compared to the 2021 report. And if we see the difference from 19 to 2021, then we can see majority of the areas having 49 to 40% of change in species composition, like area invasion. So in this particular study in the Palamu Tiger Reserve, we have recorded like various invasive from Ageratum conizoides to Ageratum houstonianum, Bidens pilosa, Cromolina odorata, Crazocephalum crepidioides, and Lantana camara, Mesosphaerum, Oxalis corniculata, Parthenium hysterophorus, and so on. So in this particular study, we have tried to see the like how percentage cover of natives and invasive species in shrub layer, particularly in Palamu Tiger Reserve, in 53 different forest plots, and we see a clear distinction between two where we are getting the highest dominance of invasive. There the tree sapling density used to be minimized, and where invasive is less, there we have tree sapling density is comparatively higher. Similarly, we have done the same study in the herb layer also in the ground strata, and we found like invasive and tree seedling density used to be like oppositely related. So when we see the list of the major 5 species in both shrub and herb layer, in the shrub layer, sal was the Soria robusta was the most dominant one, contributing 36.96% 96 of the total IBI. while Lantana Camara, Comonina odorata, and Mesosphaerium suavulens were the second, third, and fourth dominant species in the shrub layer. Similarly, in the herb layer, the topmost position was occupied by Elephantopas caber, followed by Soria robusta, then Lantana, Mesosphaerium, and Ageratum conijoides. So here we can see some of the plates from different forest patches of our country. Like we have massive forest clearance for shifting cultivation to timber extraction, and from landslide to fire. In addition to that one, Indian forests are also facing the problem of common insects as well as parasites like Fragmenthera capitata. This is one of the very common parasite found there in the tropical deciduous forest of our country. In addition to that one, human induced fire for the collection of NTFPs like mahua, flower of mahua, for local alcoholic beverage preparation, then grazing, litter collection, termites, looping, along with non-biodegradable waste. In addition to that one, as I told in the very beginning, like Indian population are highly dependent over the forest for livelihood. So here we can see various kind of NTFPs like tendu leaves, bohunia leaves, sal leaves, mahua flower, and then currants flower used to be collected by the local for selling in the nearby markets. So we have performed another study based on the human induced disturbances along an urbanization gradient in the like Ranchi city and its nearby districts. So we found like cut stumps as well as fuel collection were the major disturbance in all of the 167 studied transects, followed by cattle grazing, then presence of termites, and presence of invasive plant species. So based on this, we have tried to differentiate like in urban, peri-urban, and in natural vegetation, which are the common disturbances faced by these different urbanization gradient. And we found like in case of urban areas with the blue column, we are found like invasive species is the major disturbance there in the urban areas, while in case of peri-urban areas we are getting like presence of katstan, timber felling, fuel wood collection, then cattle grazing, understory invasive plants, as well as presence of parasite as the major disturbances. If we consider the natural forest, then we found like fuel wood collection is the major disturbance, followed by timber felling. So accordingly, we have performed like the various phytosociological parameter analysis in different affected and non-affected regions in terms of logging activities, and we found like the density, mean density used to be higher in affected patches as compared to the non-affected patches. If we see, the dominance is quite lower in the affected patches, but as compared to the non-affected patches. Similarly, if we see the species diversity used to be lower in affected patches as compared to the non-affected patches. Similarly, in terms of grazing also, we have tried to determine what is the effect of disturbance and non-affected patches. Again, we found like density used to be higher in affected patches, slightly higher, that is 565 individual per hectare, compared to the non-affected, that is 534. And Dominance is almost similar both in affected and non-affected patches, but diversity is lower in affected patches, but as compared to the non-affected one. So we have tried to determine the disturbance index of tree species in terms of density, and we found like the disturbance index in terms of cut stump, fire, termite presence, looping activity, and presence of parasite in different forest patches with different intensity. So if we see what is the effect of deforestation and forest degradation, as you know, this degradation and deforestation directly or indirectly affect forest dependent communities and ultimately threaten the global climate as well as the survival of many wild species, and also reduce the ability of forests to provide essential ecosystem services. And deforestation and forest degradation is considered as a major cause for approximately 15% of the greenhouse gas emission, contributing to rising temperature, changing weather pattern, and increased frequency of extreme weather events. So in addition to that one, the degradation of tropical forests in terms of quality has become a global concern because of its reduced carbon sequestration potential. The world forest absorb around 2.4 billion tons of carbon dioxide per year, but deforestation and degradation further emit around 4.3 to 5.5 gigaton of carbon dioxide equivalent per year into the atmosphere. So this degradation of forests ultimately disrupt water cycle, thereby creating dire condition due to less rainfall. As we all know, when there will be less rainfall or very high rate of deforestation, industrial agriculture or overgrazing, it ultimately lead to loss of biodiversity, climate change, and loss of livelihood opportunities. In other words, we can say like bad land management can lead to drought, soil erosion, and ultimately desertification. Then what will be the option? So, as we know, ecosystem restoration is one of the important solution for reverting the land degradation or desertification. If we are able to do erosion control and we are able to do soil restoration, then we are again convert degraded land to a green forest cover. So the point is like, what is the need for restoration? As you know, the Society for Ecological Restoration was established in 1982 with the aim of implementing restoration activities based on socio-economic consideration of affected people and based on the ecological principles. And if we are able to convert one degraded land with the help of ecosystem restoration, then we are able to get back the various ecosystem processes and ultimately get the ecosystem services as well as full-fledged functions. And this restoration could remove up to 26 gigaton of greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. So as we all know, there is a very popular term used in case of ecological restoration, that is about the nature-based solutions. So according to IUCN, nature-based solutions are the action to protect, sustainably manage, and restore natural or modified ecosystem that address societal challenges effectively and adaptively, simultaneously providing human well-being and biodiversity benefits. So if we see the well-designed or well-implemented NBSS, it can deliver multiple benefits, enabling synergies and minimizing trade-off in achieving different global development objectives like sustainable development goals. So if we see the different categories of NBSS, then ecosystem restoration approach, we can take the example of ecological restoration, ecological engineering, and then forest landscape restoration. So today my main emphasis will be there on forest landscape restoration, which is considered as a nature-based solution for degrading, for prevention of forest degradation. And this forest landscape restoration basically aims to enhance the ecological integrity of deforested and degraded landscape, and it also improve human well-being using nature-based solutions like plantation, agroforestry, erosion control, and natural forest regeneration. And this FLR basically focuses on re-establishing ecosystem function at different landscape level for balancing the ecosystem services. As we know, the new generation plantation platform, it was launched in 2007. It aims to complement timber production with effective maintenance and enhancement of ecosystem and simultaneously contribute to socio-economic development and climate change mitigation. And according to this NGP, that is New Generation Plantation Platform, integrating exotic commercial tree species with native ones in plantation program can support biodiversity, the environment, and local economies. Actually, whenever I used to talk on this one, everyone used to make a query like this new generation plantation platform, whether it is promoting the plantation of the exotic tree species. Actually, what happened when we are initiating some plantation activities, in that case, if we'll prefer the native tree species due to their slow growth, it will take long time to fill up the gap of the greenery from a degraded patch to a full-fledged green ecosystem. So in that case, we can prefer in a percentage, like in a lower percentage, if we will use some exotic tree, fast growing exotic tree, then after certain growth, when the gap of the native plant growth can be minimized by integrating some amount of like exotic tree species, commercial tree species. So although, as we know, in case of natural forest also, all the plant species hardly contribute equally within the ecosystem. And as we know, many species play significant keystone role, and in forest, around 30% of the tree species can contribute to 90% of the carbon storage. So if during the plantation scheme, if we will consider those 30%, 13% of the forestry species, then we can achieve better carbon storage with minimal plantation with the native tree species, selected native tree species. So if we invest in our natural ecosystem through reduced carbon emission from deforestation and forest degradation, as well as REDD+ activities, it can contribute significantly to reduce the greenhouse gas emission and ultimately enhance the forest carbon stock. It also generates alternative source of income for the poor forest dependent communities, and that provide much needed financial incentive to prevent deforestation and provide additional livelihood benefit from conservation and restoration of forest ecosystem. So if we see the major global initiative of forest restoration, then we have to talk about the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, which emphasizes the interdependence of people and nature to improve conservation, restoration, and sustainable ecosystem management. So in addition to that one, we all are aware about the Bonn Challenge of 2011, along with the New York Declaration on Forest of 2014. It aimed to restore 350 million hectares of degraded ecosystem by 2030, and being one of the member states, India has committed to restore 21 million hectare of degraded and deforested land by 2030. And it will generate around USD 9 trillion in ecosystem services and take an additional 13 to 26 gigaton of greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. So in addition to that one, UNCCD, that is UN Convention to Combat Desertification, it established the Land Degradation Neutrality Fund to enable the private sector to support policies and invest in land degradation neutral world by 2030. So in addition to that one, we are aware of UN Red Plus program. It encourages forest restoration by creating a market value for the carbon stored in the forest. And the most importantly, the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, that is from 2021 to 2030. And this is considered a way toward a restored world. The UN Environment and FAO that lead the implementation as a measure to fight the climate crisis, enhance food security, water supply, and improve biodiversity. It challenges everyone to massively scale up restoration effort that helps the new life to breathe in the degraded ecosystem. And the different benefits of the decade can be viewed through the lens of the SDGs, such as substantial nature-based solutions for climate change mitigation and adaptation, water and food security, poverty reduction, economic growth, and biodiversity conservation. So, all those were global initiatives. As we know, India is one of the member states of all the major international initiatives, and we are parties to all the potentially important global convention and agreement related to forest and its degradation prevention, including UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. We are part of Convention on Biological Diversity, United Nations Forum on Forest, Bonn Challenge, Paris Agreement, Sustainable Development Goals, World Trade Organization, International Tropical Timber Agreement, CITES, as well as World Heritage Convention and Indigenous and Tribal Peoples Convention, and so on. The India's forestry sector constitute an important part of India's nationally determined contribution, and the ongoing program like National Mission for a Green India, National Afforestation Program, compensatory afforestation and plantation to increase the forest and tree cover in our country. So India's NDC target under Paris Agreement is to create an additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent through additional forest and tree cover by 2030. So if we see the success stories of ecosystem restoration from India, India has restored an area of 9.8 million hectares since 2011, of which 94.4% are contributed by government agencies, while 3.6 and 2% are contributed by the surveyed NGOs and private companies respectively. So according to the Global Forest Watch, from 2000 to 2020, India experienced a net change of 874 million hectare, that is of around 1.3% in tree cover. So if we see in our country, we have 59.2 million hectare of stable forest, while we have gain of 1.88 million hectare and loss of 1.01 million hectare, and we have around 6.17 million hectare of forest area under disturbed condition. So here I want to quote one of the success story of ecosystem restoration led by Professor C.R. Babu from the University of Delhi. He has established biodiversity park for preservation of native species, carbon sequestration, bioremediation, and multiple ecosystem services. We are aware of Yamuna Biodiversity Park, that is the sole initiative of Professor C.R. Babu. It represents one of the remarkable success story of the ecosystem restoration of degraded land, an example of environmental conservation in India. In addition to that one, another milestone initiative has been taken by Professor C.R. Babu, that is about cut root stock method, that initially adopted for eradication of Lantana camara in the Corbett National Park to restore the tiger habitat. So if we again, based on the Global Forest Resource Assessment 2020 report of FAO, we found like India is in the third rank in case of average annual net gain in forest area from 2010 to 20. We are able to restore like 266,000 hectare per year. So if we see the link between the ecosystem restoration and sustainable development goal, if we are able to restore the degraded forest or deforested forest practices, then we are able to achieve almost all 17 goals of SDGs. So it's basically restoration helps in achieving SDGs, restoration of various ecosystems like forest, grassland, land, river, lakes, and ultimately increase in ecosystem service and productivity. It lead to increased income and food supply, and we will able to achieve various sustainable development goals. So here I am listing some of the major challenges regarding the ecosystem restoration. That is about economic impact on restoration. The project funding and annual expenditure of restoration projects used to be quite high, and it requires substantial infrastructure, like it needs growing storage and transportation facilities and organization for successful plantation programs. So there are certain recommendations like environmental research, education, awareness, and training must be there, still needed. Then strict policy implementation and institutional support and international cooperation to make the restoration initiative successful. So here are some our responsibilities at our personal level. What are those? First is about go green, do things in a way that protect the environment and practice reducing, reusing, recycling, and refusing. Then second is about live light, live well with less consumption of resources. Third is about eat right, favor locally grown food that needs less packaging and transport, and also choose organically produced products to minimize the fertilizer and pesticide use, along with encouraging our local farmers to grow crops organically. And lastly, about fund restoration, donate to organization and community groups involved in ecosystem restoration initiatives. So here is the end of my talk. So I'm going to conclude my talk using the quotation of M.S. Swaminathan. Natural resources are our future. If conservation of natural resources goes wrong, nothing else will go right. So thank you so much to all of you, whomsoever has joined from different parts of the country as well as from abroad. So thank you, Dr. Dipu.
Thanks, Purabi, for that wonderful presentation. Now I will keep the floor open for some questions from the participants if there is any. If anyone is having something to be raised, you can just raise your hand and talk out. I have one question for you. You had mentioned about the grasslands in the Madhya Pradesh region
Yes,
in one of
yes.
your slides.
Yeah.
What's the species richness and density in that grasslands?
I have to go to my data actually, because this is the project we have carried out during 2017 to 2021. So before COVID, so I have to go through on that one, so we can personally interact over the this one. Okay, what's up? I can share you regarding the species richness.
Okay.
So, because today's presentation, I had emphasized only the vegetation types which are basically prone to forest fire, because forest fire is considered as one of the major cause of forest loss in our country. So that is why I had emphasized, like I have taken few slides from those perspectives. Someone is asking, in spite of global forest watch data, have you tried to take reference from Bhuvan data?
This was by Arup Das.
Yeah, yeah. So, Arugdas, actually, I have taken the information from, actually, majority of the work has been done based on the FSI report, as well as our own study based on different parts of the country, like in Jharkhand as well as in Central India, Madhya Pradesh. And I have also worked in there in like Mudumalai as well as in Arunachal. But today I have taken some of the selected slides from Jharkhand as well as from my recent work in MP. So our work is, I have just for like, our study was done till 2019. To take the latest update, I have taken data from Global Forest Watch uh, for the 2023 or 2024 updates. So that is the region. So I have not used Fuwan data in that. Any other query from anyone? If you have any query, you can even write to me. I'm basically working on this forest sector in different parts of the country. So in that case, you can visit our BHU website also, or otherwise you can write to me like purobisaikia@bhu.ac.in. So I will type in the chat box. type in that one set box. I don't know why. So if there is no query, I think we can stop here.
I think the presentation was quite easy for the people to understand
Yes,
all the
yes,
graphs and data you had presented.
yes, yes.
So I would like to congratulate you again for the recipient, being the recipient of the prestigious Ansur Bhatnagar Prize.
Thank you so much.
So, as I know, Purvi is one among the handful people who are considered as true ecologists in our part of the country. We have Mohammad Latif Khan joined in this session,
Yes, yes, yes. So
who
it's
is also,
actually,
yeah,
I am one of his scholar. I have trained under his supervision only. Professor Khan is one of is my PhD supervisor even. So I'm still working with him only.
yeah. So, thank you, Purvi, for accepting our invitation and being part of the CM dialogue. Uh, I
Thank you
would
so
like to
much.
thank you for being here. And also, I would like to thank Angela Andra, the CM chair, and Dr. Shalini Tani, who is the regional chair for Asia, for permitting us for having this dialogue over this topic. And thank you for all the participants who have been there till the end of the presentation. I hope this was a good learning exercise for all of you. There will be a recording of this session available in the CEM for YouTube channel. This will be also shared with you all. So once again, thank you all for joining in. Thank you, Purvi.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Dipu. So I can leave, right?